Hello, and welcome to the second session of the annual capital budget series of our balanced training. In this session, I'm going to be covering step 1, job request. I'm going to start out by covering the Start New Project option under job request. For our annual capital budgets, the first thing that we're maybe going to have to do is select our property. Now, if you are a community manager, you don't actually have to select your property anywhere in Project Pro or throughout your annual capital budget. It'll automatically default to your property. So if you're a community manager, go ahead and disregard this step. Now, if you are a regional manager or RVP or some other team member who has access to multiple properties, you will need to select the property that you want to create the annual capital budget for. But one thing to keep in mind is that you're not going to see this big, long, scary list that I see. You're only going to see all of the properties that you have access to view. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the property I want to create a budget for. The next thing you're going to do is set your funding source. Now, for your annual capital budget, your funding source is going to be operating cash. If you're on here, if you're creating something other than an annual capital budget, you may be using another funding source, or it's possible for your annual capital budget, you may have direction to do something different. But for the vast majority of people on these calls, you're going to be using operating cash as your funding source for your annual capital budget, which, remember, connects to your operating budget. So it's easy to think about. For your operating budget, you're using operating cash. From here, we're going to click on View Report. Right now, I see a number of different projects that have been created. That's because I've been in here testing. But if for you, if you've only created one project out here, you should just see the project that you created. But you will also be able to see any other projects that have historically been created for this property. The next thing to do that I want to show you is how to delete a project. So if we go over here to Delete Project, this will provide us with our delete project options. Now, a reason that you may want to delete a project is because you may have entered it in error. So the annual capital budget, we only use that for entering in new non-recurring capital expenses. So if your budget, if you're entering in something from a previously approved OCB, or if you're entering in something from a recurring budget, like your interior items that may recur year over year, that's not something you need to start a new project for. So you don't actually need to use that. And you may realize after you started that initial step, you actually do need to delete it. So if you go in here and you select your property, once again, if you are a community manager, you don't actually need to select your property. And then I'm going to delete one of these ones I created previously. Let's go ahead and delete this 728 project. Creating duplicate projects might be another good reason to delete a project. So I selected the project I wanted to delete, and I clicked View Report, and now I only see that I have 3 projects set up for this particular property. And then from here, I'm going to go to Update Project. So when you are creating a project, if you enter in a funding source and then realize that you did not enter in the correct funding source, you may need to update that project. So for example, maybe you entered an other bank account in error and you actually wanted to update that to operating cash, like we should be using for our annual capital budgets. You're able to do that here. So if you click on Other Bank Account and then you update the funding source to operating cash, we can go ahead and click View Report. And from there, I apologize, that should be set to null. And I do need to enter in a comment here. So you'll kind of notice some of those different error codes. This does give you a lot of direction if you do leave something blank. I'm just going to set this one to test. Hit View Report, and now I have updated it. So I have 3 different projects that are all set up with operating cash, because that is what I'm using for my annual capital budget, which is part of my operating budget. And with that, we're going to go ahead and end this training, and I will see you on the next one.